Was there a point when you quit wearing your watch when you were biking through Latin America?
Well, no, because we never have much of a schedule, but we do need to know when it's going to get dark. And if a bank has hours, we have to know what hours. So we did keep our watch, but people in different parts of the world definitely look at time differently. And time actually passes at a different rate for different people. Even though time's a finite thing and it can only be 60 seconds in a minute, in an abstract sense, time passes differently for different cultures.
All right, so what would this look like when you're seeing this happening?
Well, in Mexico, in Latin America, Central America, South America, if they were going to build a house, they'd build some and then they'd have some snacks. And
I want that house built by August 15th.
Yeah, that's a very North American thing, and also in Asia, they would be very time-oriented. They would build the house by August 15th. In Mexico, they'd finish before winter. That would be their time frame, because you don't want to build much after it gets cold up in the mountains. So in Asia, they're much more by the clock, by the book. Things run on time. And in Latin America, if the bus is supposed to be there at 3, maybe 3:30, maybe 4, it's always 3-ish or 4-ish.
Cindie, that bus says I'm supposed to be there at the station at 4:15.
Oh, it's the hardest thing for me to get used to, and I still have to work at it, especially Latin America. It just doesn't happen that fast, and you just have to learn to be patient. And coming back, traveling around the world for 6 years and then coming back to the U.S., I've decided I'm now on a different clock than Americans. Americans move so fast and don't have a lot of patience. I feel that especially on the road. They don't have the patience to get around us or wait until it's safe to pass us. But in Latin America in particular, you had all day to do things. And one of the ways that it really shows up differently is how people get paid. We get paid by the hour in the United States, and so every minute counts. We get paid by the hour. So I was a consultant in the past, so I was paid for productivity. And I remember speaking to a teacher in Peru. They get paid by the month. So it's a totally different mindset to think about getting paid by the month rather than getting paid by the hour. So the time difference is just huge.
I mean, when you talk about time, people get awfully cranky and mean on the road. Can you imagine waiting 5 seconds at a stoplight before you started? Oh my gosh, 5 seconds, and you've got 5 cars behind. Honk, honk, get that stupid car moving, you meathead. So often this stuff comes out of just a second or two. Nobody wants to wait 1 more second or 2 seconds or 5 seconds. Oh my gosh, there's something wrong. The world's falling apart. It's just not that way, is it? I mean, it doesn't have to be that way.
No, it doesn't have to be that way. Matter of fact, I consider it one of the gifts of this trip is the gift of time, and that is the gift to wait and to have patience. I'm not typically a very super patient person, but I'm much more willing now than I was in the past to wait and let things happen. And
let's just see about that. Is that true?
She is. When we first left, Cindie had no patience for anybody, and I was a teacher, so I had a lot of patience for everybody. And then on the road, she just had to learn that if the bank said it opened at noon, then it may or may not mean it's going to open, and things like that, where I had a much more accepting way of dealing with that, and Cindie would become frustrated. But in time, I think they just beat it out of her, because she just doesn't have this. She just had been frustrated so long, she realized just to go with the flow, and things will come when they come.
And having patience doesn't mean just waiting for the bank to open up. Having patience also means letting things happen instead of trying to make things happen the way. Yes, and that was another part of my personality. I guess I had to let go of. Like
if a bus broke down on the street in front of us and blocked off the street, Here in the States, people would be yelling and screaming and writing their congressperson and all that. There, people either get out and help or sit and listen to the radio.
Well, that's beautiful.
I mean, they're just not screaming and yelling. They would just turn the radio on and sit, or if they thought they could help, they would get out and help.
Well, what did you think about all that at first?
Well, it was a little hard to take, and then I finally, Tim kept saying, just drift down the river, put your feet down the river and let it take you, and actually finally just letting go and letting things happen and having the patience to just let them happen makes life a lot more fun, a lot more comfortable.
And we don't learn to swear in Spanish anyway when we travel. We didn't learn those words, so we don't use those words. And we live a pretty rated G life anyway, so it was pretty natural. The book goes step by step how we entered Mexico and how we learned to speak Spanish and all the mistakes we made and all of the problems with languages we had learning, but it goes through how we learned a lot of the words, and because the different situations come up where you have to learn a bunch of words, like a computer has a problem. So I'm off in the dictionary in the computer section, and then you go into the store, and then it goes through just little things we learned about how they do a wedding or a funeral and things like that. So as we learned, we wrote it in the book. So as you read the book, you're learning about these cultures with us.
Well, one thing I've learned, pronunciation is everything.
You have to be patient to learn
yes,
language.
you have to be patient, and you have to drop your inhibitions.
Inhibitions means you're not on your guard.
Right, and your insecurities. Am I going to say it wrong, or that kind of thing? You have to kind of be bold and step up to it and say, I'm going to give it a try. And try to communicate in another language, because it's a little intimidating when you know the person that you're talking to knows a lot more in that language than you do.
Yes, it is.
And I think in schools they stress the correct grammar and stuff so much that you go down to Latin America and you're afraid that you're going to get the grammar wrong and you don't want to speak because you're afraid of making a little mistake. But people down there don't care. And Cindie was much better about learning the languages out of the book, but I was much better about just taking the 5 words I know and piecing them together in different sentences.
People really appreciate the effort, don't they?
Yeah, they do. And they did not care that my grammar was poor. What they cared about is they could now communicate with me where before they couldn't. I'm in their country. Why would we speak in English? We should speak in their language.
You spent 18 months bicycling through Latin America. Now, you've talked a lot about Mexico, but you were in a lot of other places. Did you meet beautiful people?
Almost every day. We've learned that what you see on TV about different countries is only the great big things that happen, and it's not all drug lords having shootouts and, killing each other. When people abroad see TV of America, all they see is drive-by shootings and highway crime and things like that. So we get asked, have you seen a shootout? Have you seen road rage? And we tell them America's not like that. And finally it dawned on us that, well, what we see of their country, maybe a suicide bomber, maybe a drug lord having a gun war, that's not the whole country. That's just what makes the news. Nobody wants to watch CNN and watch me go into a convenience store and buy a pack of gum. They want to see somebody go into a convenience store with a gun and shoot people and all this horrible things. And that's why people are so afraid, I think, of foreign countries.